And, I don't think it's like that in us, returning here, we're bringing that back here. I think that's already here, among the faculty.
Can I ask you a follow-up just to get some clarity? I wonder if are you thinking of a culture and a space where there's a politics to knowledge, so there's this kind of culture of this politicized history that was so prominent, and it sounds like you're saying that you don't see it as much anymore.
Yeah.
Right, where there was more Black study circles and like Society of the First World, I forget what it's called, things of that nature.
Yeah, and if we do, I don't think it's consistent.
You know why I'm skeptical? Because when I was here in 1998, I published a cover story in the Washington City paper, basically arguing exactly that. I was wrong. I was dead wrong. I couldn't have been more wrong. But I think part of the reason why it feels like that, and I'm sorry if I've contributed to this, but whenever people describe something or talk about something and it's in the past, there's always like a level of myth to it. You know what I mean? It's very hard to capture the day-to-day feeling. I mean, one of the more unfortunate things I think is that, there've been young, Black high school students who have, seen me or read me wax, poetic about, Howard and how great of a place it is. And you come here, and it's not so much that there's anything wrong with Howard. I mean, there's some things wrong with Howard, but it's not that. That's not what it usually is. It's that you are confronted with all of the kind of depression, all of the mental anguish and anxiety that attends any human being who's suddenly thrust into a totally different situation. And in that moment, the myth can't help you. You know what I mean? Like all of that, stuff that, Ta-Nehisi was like, where is that? You know what I'm saying? Like that's not there. You know what I mean? Where's the revolution? I don't see no revolution. You know what I mean? I see kids trying to, dress and do X, Y, and Z. That's what I see. That's what I saw too. And I should have said that. You know what I mean? Like that is what I saw too. But that's part of it. That's part of the community also. So I would think that, I just remember having this feeling when I was here in the 90s, that Howard was not what it was in the 60s and 70s.
Exactly.
Like, I remember thinking that.
Exactly.
This place, y'all done fell off. You know what I mean? Like, I remember thinking that.
No, we would walk around and we would walking from Blackburn to Founders.
Look at these kids wasting their lives.
All day.
Straight
Like,
eight.
he was out here when I walked past this morning.
Right.
And here he is again. Doesn't even know where Founders is. We definitely complained a lot about it. Up there freestyling in front of Blackburn.
Do it with your life.
Do it with your life.
Thank you. And sorry, one quick last question. First, I want to say hongera, which is congratulations in Swahili for going to your first African country. I just came from Kenya about 4 weeks ago, so this next question was inspired by that. One thing I've noticed is that as Black Americans, we tend to romanticize Africa, but then when we go there, we realize that colonization is still present. And so what do you think the African/Black revolution looks like?
I have no idea, because I've never been to Africa. That's the first thing. It's my first, I'm gonna see. I'm gonna see. I'm gonna see a lot. I expect to see a lot.
Thank you.
I warned you about this before, but it's, you've traveled so much, so it's really that serendipity of discovering what you did not know existed is the beauty of international travel. And I know when I first went to Dakar as a junior at Howard, if they rolled out a red carpet and started playing drums and dance, I would not have been surprised, right? Because that's your dream. But no, it was taxi drivers and people, just trying to go about their lives. But it's kind of hard to get that. Like what you say, you're afraid. You're afraid that you're going to encounter something that undermines this notion of Africa that you love.
That's right. That's right.
Hello. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for coming and sharing just a little bit of your background and wisdom. Between the World and Me is one of my favorite books, and I'm hoping that I can share that with my students. So, with that being said, my name is Fatu. So I'm actually a graduate of Howard University. Graduated 3 years ago, and now I'm an adjunct professor at Howard University. So fairly young, working in the School of Communications Annenberg Honors Program. And just off of a little bit of what you said, specifically when you said some of those intimate conversations that you've had with your students in certain forums, I'm having a couple of, I guess you could say, difficulties with trying to challenge them to be, one, more creative, and to two, think more critically about the topics that they're writing about, because they're writing about very serious and relevant communications topics just currently happening across the diaspora. And so my question to you is, what are some of the ways that you challenge your students to think creatively and think critically that allows them to have their own voice in their writing?
I think you need to talk about this. I
I was about to say, my dad's from Senegal too, and I was going to say, I hope you have a great trip there. It's a beautiful place.
Okay. All right. Well, if you got recommendations on where I should go, it's wide open. What do I? So the way to writing, I conduct my writing class is there's a pretty healthy amount of reading, and what I try to do is train them. This is true in any writing class. I try to train them to read like writers and not like readers. I always tell them over and over again, this is not book club. By which I mean, I try to challenge them to not say, I like when X, Y, and Z did A, B, C. I try to get them to say, this is what X, Y, Z is doing, and I could steal that for myself. You know, like I try to get them to study, you know, I basically only have sports metaphors when I'm in class. You know, and I always tell them, you know, look, the way Tom Brady is watching, you know, film of a game is not the way that we watch a game. And you got to watch it, you know, in such a way to figure out what people are actually doing. So I'm big on like breaking down technique and understanding the technique that writers are actually doing, and then learning to, you know, do that yourself. That is harder than you would think. I actually think that's quite challenging. Because if you think about it, like for most of us interact with writing as readers. I mean, that's how we're trained to do it, that's how we're trained to react to it. And so it's very difficult to try to get your brain into, you know, a different place of, oh, okay, I'm the person now. I find that to be the most challenging part of the class.
Yeah, I would say that's really helpful. I think one thing that I've also noticed is just literacy in the Black community is not at the height at which I'm very young, and I also grew up in a house with a mom who read all the time and had books all the time. But when I think about my peers and even a lot of my students now, they don't read. Like, they're not reading books. They're, you know, we're reading on social media, we're reading on the internet, and kind of not even like really reading. We're really just scrolling and passing by. And so I think that's another challenge that I'm trying to get them to get into the habit of reading. It's very difficult. But no, that was really helpful, so I appreciate it. And like I said, from Senegal, you're going to have a beautiful and amazing time. Make sure you go to Corée Island.
Okay. So the one thing I do have to say about that for too is like, I felt like that when I was here. These kids ain't reading. Y'all not reading. You know what I mean? And so I wonder whether anything has actually changed. You know, I recognize that the tools are here. The tools of distraction are definitely here, and there are definitely more of them. But look, when we wanted to do this, you know, Zoe and Hurston, you know, workshop that we did this summer, we had no problem at all getting students to apply, to come in, to show up, to be interested. And we had no problem with them being at a level. ET's at U Chicago, obviously very, very competitive school. I was coming from NYU, obviously very, very competitive school. We had no problem at all getting a cohort of students who were at or exceeded the level of what we had, you know, dealt with before. It wasn't an extremely hard thing to do. And so I just want to push us a little bit. I know we have challenges as a people, but I just want to push us a little bit on the idea that like we're not reading and we're not, you know, accessing the way we should be.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Anderson. I'm from Colombia. I study law in UTC, Universidad Tecnológica del Chocó. Thank you very much for Racial Bunch International. Thank you for your presentation. Two questions. First, what are your opinion about the racial justice? Second,
I'm sorry about the
Racial justice.
what is your opinion about racial justice? Second, what should we young Black people do to achieve your goals and be role model like you?
Oh, wow. I'm going to decline to answer the second one. Well, I will say I have two things. I really try to be a good person. I really try to work hard. You know, like I try to be very, very decent to people. I do my best. I'm not saying I'm always decent to people. You know what I mean? But I try to really be good to people, and I try to work. You know, the thing I choose to do, the thing that I claim to love, I really try to do it. And I'm not saying I always do, but I at least, you know, aspire to do it. You know, at a very, very. You know what I mean? Because on the base level, so much of it is lying. Like just lying and justification for the most horrible, awful, you know, shit you could possibly do. You know what I mean? And yet the problem is people are living and existing on top of it. You know what I mean? With the remnants of the crime, you know, the crime scene literally all around them. When you're trying to dig yourself out of that, it's a lot. Am I mythologizing Africa? You know, am I, you know, we were all kings and queens. Am I doing too much of that when in fact that's not actually pure? How do I deal with the fact that it was actually Africans who sold me, you know, into X, Y? Does that mean I have no connection here? You know what I mean? And yet, when I look at the people who I'm arrayed against, they are clearly making alliances amongst themselves internationally. Like they don't, you know, sit back and have these discussions about, well, maybe they do, but I'm saying that Trump, Orban, Bolsonaro, like these people see themselves as having something in common. They have a common agenda. You know what I mean? Like they're working together towards something. And so, you know, I'm at this place where I'm trying to think this through. And I'm answering your question in a deliberately hard way. Because obviously, you know, the answer to what I think of racial justice, I'm for it. But I think like the more interesting thing in the place where I'm at right now is to try to put some solid ground beneath my feet. You know, when I talk about Pan-Africanism, I remember like the first time, you know, Janae were always, you know, much more well-traveled than, you know, me and my wife were. And we always admired that. You know what I mean? Like we were always trying to, and so the first time, you know, I go to France, and we go to France, like, I was shocked at how black Paris was. I was like, what? Like, I read books, too. Like, I wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, I'd written books, I published books. You know, I was like, what? And one of the things that and this sounds really, really naive, one of the things that I was not prepared for was the community of black people there who saw the lines of connection, like right off the bat. You can see, like, you're stealing yourself for the worst possible thing, right? Which is, excuse my language, but they don't fuck with us. Like, you're stealing yourself, like, against that, you know, are we, you know, is this real? Are we actually imagining something? Is there, you know what I mean? And to find that there is something, you know, very, very real there, was a, you know, just a really, really beautiful experience. How to talk about that, how to write about that, how to articulate that in a way that is satisfactory to me, in a way that, you know, is clarifying, you know, to me, it's probably something I'm really, really trying to work on.
Thank you for your answer. Yeah.
I struggle with that though, because we were in Paris, and we were just talking about race,
Right.
and we've talked about this where Ta-Nehisi came back from France, met with some a black organization in Paris. I know it was an audience of Caribbean and African Parisians, I think, right? And they were marveling at the fact that on this side, how organized we are. Like they see us as so advanced. We have the NAACP, Legal Defense Fund, Urban League, black churches, HBCUs, right? We have organizations, black banks, and, you know, cooperatives, and they couldn't imagine being that organized. One thing we were exploring when I was just there this past summer is that we have the idea of blackness. That's umbrella. It's all embracive. Even if we say, okay, well, Ghanaians and Nigerians are different, and Ghanaians say, well, I'm not African American, but there's still such thing as blackness. But ethnicity matters so much more in France. So coming together is more difficult.
Yeah, but you know, it's like, again, I mean, I know we've talked about this before, when we think about people on the other side, like you know, you might disagree with this, Ben, like, it is my strong opinion that Europe is imagined. You know what I mean? That
it's real, but it came from fiction.
Yes, and I think
it's like their myths are
right,
but they're dangerous.
Right. Yes.
We die from their myths, but our myths are somehow.
I don't mean to say it has no effect in the world, but there is nothing about them that designates community necessarily. They had to do some work to do that. You know what I mean? Like some things had to happen to do that. And so I probably have become much more enamored, you know, with the idea that why can't we imagine
Well,
community too?
you asked
Like, I'm not
Fanon, you
sure
asked
why not.
W.E.B. Du Bois, you asked Walter Rodney. If we don't come together somehow,
Right,
we're doomed.
right,
That's just it.
right.
I'm monopolizing time. This brother has a comment.
Hello, Tanasi, how you doing? My name is Glenn Goodwine. I started Howard in '93, like you, so very fond times. I played on the soccer team here at Howard, which gave me a new perspective. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and you know, I decided to go to Howard after I witnessed them make it to the NCAA finals in '88, and you know, obviously they're the only black soccer team in the country to get there. I'm still active with the soccer program here. I recruit a lot of kids. My question to you is, how do we get the level of activism that you have in your books that other people do, you know, throughout their careers into this generation and make them like hold that tight to them?
So let me interject very quickly because I want everyone to be able to participate. This is a community conversation. But can we put a pin in that question and kind of take them all together?
Absolutely.
About elevating the level of activism within.
Yeah,
within
I
the
got a
community?
really short answer to that.
Okay.
I think they're there. I don't think this generation is lacking in any way, you know, in terms of the level. Certainly not any level different. I mean, we have anything like Black Lives Matter. You know, whatever your critique of it is or whatever. The sheer amount of activism that you saw in 2020 was like nothing I'd ever seen in my life. You know, you can say, well, that didn't lead to this, that didn't lead to that, but like you can, like that is a critique that can basically be made of any generation of activism.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to run through them. I apologize because we're going a little long.
Well, hello there. My name is Jose. I'm from Colombia, originally from Quito, Chocó. I'm studying languages, English and French. And my question is, what would it be your pieces of advice for young people? I mean, to keep fighting for the dreams. You know, there are people who feel depressed, you know, they don't know what to do. They think they have no opportunities, you know. So what would it be your pieces of advice? And something else. How would you help the world to be a better place?
Yeah, let's hold on to that one. Put that on ice, and we'll answer it, but we're going to get a few together, and then we'll respond.
How y'all doing? Sean Davis, native Washingtonian, and read all your books, particularly The Beautiful Struggle, which I gotta say, Baba in the back, definitely appreciate. Obviously, he had a huge impact on you, and you had a huge impact on me as well. From when I first heard Lauryn Hill and was so surprised at the words that she spoke, and then reading We Were 8 Years in Power and reading that sentence about how you talked about Baldwin and his writing, and me feeling that way about your writing, who would you compare yourself to artist-wise, rapper-wise? I know you're a hip-hop fan, but then also, what writers, authors, young writers, authors, inspire you the way that, maybe the way that Baldwin inspired you?
Talking about activism, we have inspiration. And then we have a couple of questions online that we're going to, after you pose your question, then we'll.
Can I take those two just so I don't forget?
Okay, yeah.
Let me just say these two so I don't forget. I'm generally bad at advice. I'm just not, you know, it's interesting. I think people often think of writers as people that, you know, are able to, you know, give like wisdom. And I don't know. All I can say is for me, the understanding of the nature of what oppression was and why things were the way they were and why I could come to Howard University and have a friend who was a totally normal, good kid who could end up being killed by the police. That was like really, really important and precious to me because You know, and I'll always say this. I mean, I don't know that there's the oppression, and then there's the need to justify the oppression by lying. And I won't say the lying is worse than the oppression, but the lying is pretty bad. And the lying was the thing I felt like I had the most power over. And so I think like that was very, very helpful to me. I think in answer to your other question, well, right now, I don't know if it still is, but it was like 110 degrees in California. You know, like California's on fire. You know, you got fire over here. You know, we get flooding. You know, you got fire over there. We get flooding on our side. It was like 100 degrees. You know, in France this summer. You know, the planet's burning up. You know, it's probably the biggest, most important thing, which itself is rooted in white supremacy, by the way. But that's a much longer discourse. I want to make sure I get everybody's question answered. Who do I admire, and who do I look to for inspiration? I mean, you know, this is a pretty cliche answer, but I'm sorry, you know, I think Kendrick's brilliant. You know, I think he's absolutely brilliant, and he's probably the person who I hear the most, and I think, wow, I wish I had wrote that. You know what I mean? I really need to get, you know, you gotta get it together, Ta-Nehisi. You know, I think he's brilliant.
All right, thank you so much. My name is, good evening. My name is Mei Rong Liu. I'm a faculty at the School of Social Work, and this is my 12 years being here. And I teach social work and the Black perspective, and advocating for oppressed and marginalized communities at the School of Social Work. So my classes are very related with social policy and social activism and social justice. So I think my question is related with the following, with this conversation. I really agree with you that racism is like ocean, right? You can see it's not real, but we all swim in it. And I also agree with you, very appreciate the point like writing is a way of express ourselves, but not only express ourselves, but also a form of activism. And however, writing is lonely, as you mentioned earlier. You don't have the time, it's hard work. And I remember the Howard used to have a campaign called Writing Matters, and Writing Matters, Writing Matters. And however, writing is hard, so I just wonder if you can give some practical tips or advice to students how to overcome. What's the tips for writing, and what is, for example, how to overcome such loneliness and keep on doing it. And the second is student desire activism, especially in the current social political context. And can you give students some words, for example, why writing is important for social justice?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, I feel so nervous. However, my name is Lady Hurtado. I'm from Quito, Colombia. I'm studying modern languages with emphasis in English at Universidad Tecnológica del Chocó. Some of your articles have some names in particular that draws attention. I read some of them, and I have the question that, what's your strategy for naming your essays and writings that draw attention, people's attention?
I can't see it. It's a good question.
Okay.
It's okay now.
So I'll take the last one first, and I'll come back. I think it goes back to the point about clarifying. I mean, I'm always trying to write in a way that is as clear as, you know, I possibly can be. You know, the case for reparations was what it was. You know, that's exactly what it was. Sometimes there are things that are a little bit more poetic that probably are not as literally clear, but I think catch the emotion of what I'm trying to say, as is the case with Between the World and Me, you know, which, you know, was derived from a Richard Wright poem, and it's very much about how you can think you're out of the past, and the past can reach back and pull you back in. And then there are other times when, and I guess it was like this with Between the World and Me, but I think, and then there are other times when I feel like I'm just trying to tap into that ancestral energy. And that was the case with, like, We Were 8 Years in Power, you know, where there was, you know, a generation of black folks who very much face the counter-revolution like we are facing right now, and how they articulated it, and drawing the parallels there. So that probably is the big thing.
Did your editors come in on the essays, or was that on you?
The only thing, the beautiful struggle, but after that it was me. Yeah, after that it was me. The other question was about writing. Yeah, writing is very hard. It's really hard, but it has a kind of beauty to it in that it's also very, very simple. If you want to write, you need to read. You need to read as much as you can, and then you need to go write. And when you can't write, you need to type some things. I find that the biggest obstacle is young writers read other writers who they admire, and they have it in their head that writer just sort of sat down and just and just dashed it off. And then when they sit down and they try to dash it off, it doesn't work. But the fact of the matter is that great writing is built, And when you're at the sketch level, which is to say when you're at your drafting level, oftentimes things are not, particularly well formed. They might not be as beautiful and as, succinct as you really, really want them to be. You gotta have great tolerance for your own terribleness. Because everything starts off bad. Everything. That's just the way it is. You know what I mean? I think the singular thing about writing is, if you're doing it right, if you're doing it in a really, really challenging way, every piece has to be written differently. And so every piece, at least for me, part of the work is figuring out how to write it each time. Now there are writers who, kind of get into a rhythm and then they just, do what they do. I don't find that kind of writing particularly exciting. I think I can really feel it when a writer is actually pushing. But I say that to say, you gotta be able to it is a, has anybody ever seen Roman J. Israel? I've never seen that film. All right, I love that film. It's not a great film, but I love it. And I love it because Denzel, who has been named sexiest man alive, who all black women love, was like, you know what? I'm gonna do, what I gotta do to play this, nerdy sort of idiot savant. I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna fully commit to it. And I'm going to part with all of the things that maybe feed into my ego. It's a tremendous act of vulnerability, actually. And I actually think about it a lot when I think about writing, because I think writing requires that. The reason why people get what they call writers a lot, or whatever, they can't be vulnerable. You know what I mean? They put the thing on the page and the thing is not beautiful, and they say, "What the hell is this?" You got to be willing to be vulnerable, to be ugly, to be sloppy, to write things that are ugly and sloppy, because if you can't do that, you can never get to the beauty that you're trying to get to. I literally was going through this in class today. I had, my students had to present, their essay topics, and I won't say any names, but certainly a few of them were like, well, can I run this past you before I run it past the class? I said, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You got to do it in front of the class. You got to do what I just did. I didn't practice that with anybody. You know what I mean? You got to be vulnerable. You got to, say the thing and be willing to do that, because you can't do that, you can't write.
Is being vulnerable also sharing it? I find I write best after it's been marked up a little bit, an early draft.
Yeah.
It helps me
Yeah.
get through it, and then I rewrite and rewrite.
I'm the same way. I'm certainly much better on, when it comes time to rewrite. The hard thing is spitting it out.
That's hard, yeah.
That's the getting it out is just so great.
The rewrite is the exciting part.
Yeah.
Miss Enlo, do we have just a couple of last ones?
We do. We have, actually, AV team, are we good on sound? Do I need to stand or anything? I should stand. Over here. Hi.
Hi.
Okay. Actually, I know we're short on time, but just before we start, I want to say thank you so much for being here. Something that I don't think you know is that Between the World and Me is my favorite book of all time.
Really? You never told me that.
I know. How would I, though? It has been, I guess, it has been for 5 years since I was a freshman I skipped class for 4 days to stay home and read that book. I'm a pretty slow reader. And reading your words and hearing about your experience and Dr. Talton's experience and Mama Narayan's experience here.
Did you know Ben at that point when you read it?
I knew of him and we had met, but we weren't close yet. It was incredible. I mean, I know you say being here, it's not, you don't really take it in the way that other people maybe expect you to, but for me as a witness, I mean, you two are the reason why I'm at Howard now. So it's really an honor to be able to witness your return home and to witness it so closely in this capacity. So thank you for being here. And for...
Thank you all for coming out. That was excellent.
Thank you. So, yes, 2 questions definitely want to get to. This is from Aaliyah Humber. Aaliyah says, could you please talk early writings and participation in student-led projects such as design, excuse my pronunciation, Kulcha, and how the work created during that time influenced your work and perhaps return to Howard?
I don't quite understand the question, but I'm assuming, I guess, well, I was right when I was here. I can talk about that. I had no problem. I was tremendously lucky. I had a great community of fellow writers.
Talking to Mike.
Is it not on? All right. Okay. There we go. Sorry, guys. I was really lucky. I had a great. Could you not hear anything I was saying that whole time?
We heard you. Go ahead.
Y'all missed all of that?
No, we heard you.
Oh, okay. All right. Like cut my mic, man. No, I was fortunate. I had a great, a peer group of young writers, at the time, who were absolutely remarkable. Look at Maven and Sanaa walking. You see me walking that lady, man? Jesus. Anyway, I had a great group of peer writers.
Okay.
At that time we've all gone on to do remarkable things. So that was like the first thing. But then the second thing, I had like a great group, and I would put Ben in this category of peer intellectuals. You know what I mean? Who are always reading and always thinking about things and always, challenging. And when I think about like writing at that time, it's funny, given what I just said. I think about being really, really frustrated. Like I was always trying to get to something and write something, and it was like I couldn't. Like my reach really exceeded my grasp. Like I knew where I wanted to go, and I was not capable of getting there. But at the same time, I think like that period of practice was absolutely essential. I don't think I would be a writer, certainly not the writer I am now. You know what I mean? If I had not been here, and had that group around me.
Wow, thank you. And this is from Bonnie Harris. Bonnie says, what would you say to a young Black person that doesn't feel that a degree from Howard would benefit them in the world, or rather a degree at all?
I would tell them I'm the wrong person to answer that question because I don't have a degree from Howard.
No, but I think that might make you the perfect person to answer.
Oh, boy. I mean, I would like to have a degree from Howard. It's not like I think like there's something wrong with a degree from Howard. I don't know. I have a hard time answering that because I think like the education I got here was absolutely essential. Like essential. And God, I'm sorry, Provost Wutan. Actually, I'm sorry, you too, Ben. The paper felt superfluous. Like the paper felt like I got the education. Like the thing was to come to get the education. I got it. I got the education. You know what I mean? And the paper felt like a thing that would allow me to make more money, which is important. And as I found out, was very important. There's nothing wrong with making more money. But when I think about, like, I don't feel like I have regrets. Like I really wish I had studied abroad and went to a francophone country and took my French studies a little more seriously. Like I think about stuff like that. But I don't regret the paper. I don't regret leaving without the paper, because I really feel strongly like I got the education. And so from my perspective, that is why, obviously we want everybody to graduate, that is the priceless thing that Howard offers. And I was in a long tradition of great Howard dropouts from R.C. Davis to Lucille Clifton. I mean, there were like a number of them, you know what I mean? Who would drop, I would meet Howard Dropout, who were great and were doing great things in the world to Puff Daddy. I mean, you know, so, you know what I mean? Not that I'm urging dropping out, but you know what I mean? The path had been laid. You know what I mean? And what I'm saying is that those people had gotten the education though. You understand what I'm saying? And to me, that was the important thing.
Thank you.
That's what we have on.
There are a few others, and let me double check.
Well, maybe we'll just begin to wind down. But it's this evening speaks to just the importance of horizontal networking, right? We tell people go to office hours and meet your professors and look at the striver out there. But really, when I met you, you seemed special because they were calling you Ta-Nehisi the poet, which I found annoying. But you were just someone I liked to hang out with and talk to. We had no idea that we'd be sitting on this stage. Had no idea that Onitar Nelson's daughter would be close friends with my daughter, who's sitting right over there. Or we had no idea that Natalie Hopkinson's daughter would be here and close friends with my daughter, and I'm renting her basement. So these you never know what these relationships are going to bring, and that's why I always encourage my students when they say look to your left and look to your right, only one of you are going to be here. No, look to your left and to your right. You may be with your lifelong partners. And here we are pushing on 30 years, and Candace is over here, and this just speaks to the specialness of those 4 years and Howard University. So it is my distinct honor, my brother, to welcome you back to Howard.
Thank you. Thank you. Coming out, what do you got?
Beautiful to see you. I think Ta-Nehisi is going to go out first. Is that the protocol? Okay. We have to stay seated. Ta-Nehisi is going to leave, but thank you all so much. This has been fantastic.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.